The following is a conversation with Emmett Preciado, a trans actor, trans activist, and singer-songwriter. I'm Pepe, and I'm going to be the main host for this session. Emmett and I talk about his voyage in transformation. I've learned and am still learning about trans issues, and Emmett kindly corrects me whenever I misspoke, and we're leaving those parts in as teaching moments. Afterwards, we'll have a surprise segment, but due to this episode length, we won't be having an aftershow. For those just tuning in to Pepe and Ybra for the first time, I'm Pepe, aka Joanna Glass, and Ybra, aka A. Perez, is my bandmate, and we are professional musicians who play in a two-piece rock band called Glasspirits. This podcast will have guests who are musicians or professionals in the music and entertainment business. They'll have music tips, discuss issues in the music industry, what inspires them, and their creative process. Our current schedule will be to publish each episode once a week. We have all the guests filmed and in the can, so you'll definitely get 12 episodes, 1 episode a week coming to you. If we get a positive response, we'll have a second season, so make sure you like, comment, rate, and review this podcast. The theme of this season is Voyager. Many of our guests come from all over the world, or they're transplants from across the country. And the voyage doesn't have to be physical. Many of them have had emotional and spiritual voyages as well. The topics discussed in this episode pertain to sensitive subjects like homophobia, transphobia, depression, and suicide. And it may be emotionally triggering for some viewers. Listener discretion is advised. So, due to the length of this episode, there won't be an aftershow today. Sorry about that. But we'll be back with it in the upcoming weeks. We'll also put timestamps in the description and add show notes. If you enjoy this podcast, subscribe on YouTube, give it 5 stars, and leave a good review on Apple Podcast. Support us on Patreon, and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or our website, pepeandybra.com. Now, without further ado, here's our conversation with Emmett Preciado. All right, everyone. So I have with me here a very special guest. His name is Emmett Preciado. Always smiling, a beautiful soul, one of the kindest people I know. So here we go. Yeah, how did we meet, Emmett?
How did we meet? I auditioned for your music video. And it was funny because I actually never thought I was gonna make the music video. I wasn't able to make the audition. And then it all just like worked out, and I was able to audition for you in person, and then you picked me. So that was really awesome. Yeah. But yeah, your music video for Mexican Baby.
Yeah, I love talking about the audition process, even when I look up other movies and things, and how did people get roles, and just to let our audience know that my band Glasspirits with my bandmate A. Perez were coming out with a music video for our song Mexican Baby. We decided to, well, it was actually my bandmate's idea to have this love story. And I was like, okay, let me cast this and figure this out. And so, yeah, we sent out a casting call. I posted, actually, you responded on Facebook from what I remembered. And I posted in one of these acting and filming Facebook groups. And you responded. You sent everything. And yeah, you were also working on other projects, and you weren't able to make the initial audition, but then you kept expressing that like you were really interested, and you sounded really bummed. And I was like, man, he just sounds so nice. And the other person was wonderful too that we were considering, but I was just like, you know what? I'm always going to wonder about this person. So and you were like moving at the time. It was like really crazy for you. Like held the audition at your empty apartment. And and I was like, yeah, if you're able to stage it in this certain way, and you found like a fellow actress to like audition with you, and you got the furniture stage, and I was like, wow, this person, he just makes so much effort. He works so hard. And not only that, like, you just did a good job and deserve the role anyway. So
Oh, you.
yeah, that was like a really wonderful time. And we have finished shooting, and we actually shot it. Probably we started shooting and like wardrobe fitting a month before the pandemic happened, or a little more than a month ish. And then on our last day of shooting, like the pandemic was starting, and so we just shot. We like rushed to shoot. Like the studio, I had booked studio space for the scenes, and we and then the studio had to close down because it was part of a college, and so they had to follow state and local ordinances. And so I was just like, oh man, let's just like, I don't know when I'm gonna see you guys. Like, I just didn't know. I was like, are you guys willing to like shoot this today? And
We
you,
just jumped right on it,
yeah,
and we
and you
finished it.
guys were so game. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I showed you some teaser screenshots, and I'm really excited. So
I'm excited too. I can't wait.
yeah, and the actress who stars along with Emmett is Amy Melendrez, and she's also super awesome. So you if you check out Emmett's Instagram, you will see them being awesome together because they are BFFs.
She's my girlfriend now.
Yeah. That's I guess we can kind of touch up on that later if you feel like it. But yeah, I mean, let's get our bearings down. So your former name was Emmett Claren. So when I was looking you up to just hear about your story, a lot of your articles were from the Huffington Post, and Vice did a documentary on you, which was super awesome. But at that time, you were Emmett Claren. Do you want to maybe tell our audience what happened and how Emmett Preciado came about?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Actually, my whole life, I grew up not knowing who my grandfather was on my dad's side, and he didn't know who his dad was. So on my dad's birth certificate, my grandma just wrote down Claren as his last name. And that's not actually like the name of his grandfather, but it was just put down. And that's the name that my dad grew up with. That's the name that I grew up with. Can you hear the yard work? Is it?
No, I don't hear it at all.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, sorry. And then a couple years ago, like I might say like a year and a half ago, my dad did the 23andMe test, and we ended up finding a whole side of the family we didn't even know about. Ended up finding his dad, my grandfather, and we got to like meet and everything. And their last name is Preciado, and that's the name that I was supposed to have at birth. That was the name my dad was supposed to have at birth. So I've decided that I'm going to be changing my name legally to Emmett Preciado because that's what it should have been all my life. So I'm currently working on that, but there are a lot of articles that have like my old name in it. So it gets people get kind of confused, and so it's kind of like a fun story, and also really cool to like know the Preciado side of my family now.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome story, and I think the great part of it is just discovering a part of you, I guess that you didn't know or that has been missing, and then getting to know that side of the family. So that is super awesome and special.
Yeah.
I remember you kind of found that out when we were starting this project, and I was like, man, he's going through a lot of changes. Like, you were moving, your name was changing. I was like, okay, this is this is
Yeah,
his thing.
and I'm moving again. I'm moving next weekend, so it's just I'm busy.
Okay, wow. Well, that's life. There's always changes. So, yeah, and Speaking of moving, you have, from listening to other podcasts, you have been to Utah, Nebraska, even like Wisconsin, right? You
That's where I
have
grew up.
just, yeah, you've just, been everywhere, but you actually were born in California. Do you want to kind of talk about that?
Yeah, I was born up north in Merced, California, and only lived there for like 4 years. Um, my family dynamic is a little confusing. My birth mother had me when she was 15 years old,
Mm.
and my dad was 17, and um, my parents, they ended up getting married. They also had my brother 2 years later. When I was 2 years old, and then my birth mother got into drugs at a very young age, so she's not really a part of my life. Um,
Mm.
we got taken away from her when we were children,
Mm.
and my dad ended up getting custody of us and raising us. He's a single father, a very good father. Um, and then he met the sister missionaries from the Mormon Church, um, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the full name. But the sister missionaries came to our apartment. I guess I was told that I opened the door to the missionaries, and
Mm.
they came and taught me and my brother and my dad. And um, my dad ended up like joining the church, and he also fell in love with one of the sister missionaries that was teaching us. So after her mission was over, she and my dad were like writing each other, and they fell in love, and
Oh
they were
my
dating,
gosh.
and then they ended up getting married. So the sister missionary who taught us, she became my stepmom, but she's my mom. She raised me, but she was from Wisconsin, so that's why we moved from California to Wisconsin, and then that's where I grew up. I lived there for 10 years.
Okay, so you have been with the Jesus Christ Church of Latter-day Saints,
So it's the Church
the
of
church.
Jesus Christ
Okay.
of Latter-day Saints.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yes.
Okay. I need to like practice that 10 times. It's a mouthful for me, but I'm willing to like say it right. Okay. So you have been with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints since you were 4, I believe? Or
Yeah,
okay.
I was brought into it at that age. And then I got baptized when I was 8 years old, and
Mm,
yeah, pretty much my entire life.
okay. That's great for any of our listeners. I will provide a link below on our YouTube description and wherever I can, the platforms this is going to be on, to I'll definitely check out his documentary that Vice did on him, because it's really thorough. It really shows kind of a lot that you've been through. Would you like to, kind of tell people, I guess, like a whistle stop tour of it?
Yeah. There was a documentary done a few years ago, and I was early in my transition. I think I was only like 6 months into my transition at that point. But yeah, they talked about like they got into my history with the church and where I was at that point in my life, back in 2016, and just talked about how I still felt very strongly about the church. I felt very like I wanted to stay. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be as active as possible, and I was, for the most part, as active as I possibly could be as a trans individual. Um, but it was also very difficult because I was having things taken away from me. I wasn't allowed to enter the temple. I wasn't allowed to
Mm.
do things that the men in the church usually do. And so it hurt a lot to not be able, like, I'm the kind of person who likes to be either all in or all out. I don't like being halfway in something. I don't like that. And that's what was happening, is that I had to, like, I had one foot in the church, like one foot in the door, and then the other was like, I can't really be fully like a full participant. So I talked about that. I talked about my experience with church. Um, Talked about how I still have a very, very, very strong relationship with God. Um, and we were also preparing, they were recording, like documenting my top surgery, because I was having surgery as well. So and that I was risking disciplinary action for having my surgery.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a very well done documentary. I'm really grateful that they came and and they were very genuinely interested and came into my life, and I was grateful that I was able to like share my story to help other people, especially other young trans individuals who were in the church.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and it's very intimate too. It almost, please correct me if this is probably a weird way to look at it, but when I did watch it, it was almost like seeing someone give birth, even though something was being changed and a part of your body was being removed. It was like almost watching someone give birth, like, because I guess it was like you, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of because it was just so like intimate and really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'd been preparing for months for this to be, my chest to be gone. I was waiting months and months and months, years even. I mean, I've been waiting since since I had started developing breasts. I was waiting for them to be gone, and then to wake up. They documented. My friend recorded me waking up, and seeing my flat chest for the first time, and that was like, to this day, one of the most amazing moments of my life, because I had been waiting for so long to not have breasts, and then to wake up and just, oh my gosh, I'm flat. Like, just, they're gone. Like, that was one of, like, just seriously the best feeling in the world.
So that feeling that you've just been not wanting to have breasts, you've had, how long have you had those feelings for?
I mean, since puberty, because when I was younger, I didn't really, I knew I was different than my brother, but I didn't really feel different. Like, I don't really look different. I'm flat like him. Like, my mom can cut my hair if I want. Like, I could have short hair. Like, so I'm not really different from him. It didn't really register with me that our bodies were different, that my voice was different, anything, until I hit puberty, and then I started developing breasts, and my hips started to like grow and everything. And I was just like, I would cover up. I wore multiple sports bras to flatten my chest, and then I would wear
Mm.
hoodies, big baggy hoodies and t-shirts that would just cover it up, because I didn't want the girls in my class to see that I was transforming into one of them. Like, I
Mm.
wanted to be seen as a boy to them, but my body was
Mm.
betraying me. My body was changing in a way that was
Mm.
just, it felt so wrong to me.
Mm.
And I felt like I should have been doing all the things my brother was doing. I should have been shopping in the section where he was shopping. I should, like, when we would go shopping for clothes, I was like, why do I have to go over here and look at girly clothes? Why can't I wear the clothes that my brother's wearing,
Yeah.
So puberty was like miserable.
Oh man, I'm really sorry to hear that you've had that discomfort, and I guess a huge part of me just is really relates to some of the things, some of your story. I mean, not, to the extent of where you've gone on a journey and transformed, but yeah, I've definitely had gender identity or gender expression challenges and things for years. And I mean, the funny thing is like when you're young and not influenced by society or like your community, that's kind of like the way you express yourself seems to be like, you're very in tune to like what you really are, like in your purest form in a way. I just remember I have a brother who's 10 years older than me. I like my hair was like short and cut like a boy. Like it wasn't just like a cute pixie cut. It was like cut like a boy. And yeah, when I let my eyebrows grow out, I totally look like him, and it's pretty funny. And I would like dress in his clothes until I was in 5th grade. And I was, and I would play with the boys. And
Mhm.
I wouldn't necessarily say I was into boy things, because nowadays, more and more women are getting into video games and sports and things. So, I mean, I don't think that even matters. But back then,
Yep.
I was just like considered to be like such a tomboy. And yeah, I've always had this kind of conflict with gender expression, and just had really, I didn't realize I was different until other people started saying things, like people at my school would say really derogatory things, which I am not ready to repeat on
Yeah.
here. And from like students to like PE teachers, just really inappropriate. And we can talk about it, off air one day. And I'm just kind of thinking, wait a minute. When I look back, and I'm like, the people that said these to me are like the most butchiest women. And I don't mean that in like a derogatory way. There's, like, they're tomboys themselves. It's like when they
Yeah.
saw me, they hated me because maybe they hated themselves, some kind of internalized homophobia.
Mhm.
But when you're young, you don't understand that. And I didn't like that feeling of feeling isolated. And so then I just remember just trying, like, after that, like trying to be like more feminine, just so I can like hide.
Yeah.
And and just, oh gosh, I just see older pictures of myself where I'm like in a dress, wearing high heels, and it's just, ew, like, why did I do that to myself?
Yeah.
But yeah, I look back and go, man, I just really tortured myself because I wanted to blend in and not feel isolated. But yeah, I guess I've, from hearing your stories, and watching some of your TikToks, that you've had some moments of what you'd call overcompensation.
Oh yes. Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so like I went through the tomboy phase because that was like what made me feel most comfortable, and I would have stayed in that phase forever. Like if I could have, I would have dressed tomboyish forever. Like I did the same thing when I was a kid. I would put on plays for my parents all the time and wear my brother's clothes because I had to play a boy character. So like I have to wear his clothes. It just wouldn't make sense if I didn't. No. So I would wear his clothes all the time, and I loved it. I freaking loved it. But uh, I realized that the girls didn't want to be around me, and that was the thing, is like I wanted the girls to like me, because I was also attracted to girls too, on top of feeling like a boy trapped in a girl's body. Um, but I realized, like, okay, well, if I want them to like me and want to hang out with me and fit in, I need to be like them. So I started wearing makeup. I started doing my hair. Um, I did go from a pixie cut or like a faux hawk to I grew my hair out. Um, I started wearing more feminine clothing. I would mimic my friends and copy their mannerisms. And so I started doing things with my hands like they would, and I would walk like they would, and like try and be feminine and try to fit in. And I looked the part. I did. I was a very attractive woman. I was curvy, and I was, rocking the makeup and everything. And I was miserable because that was not me. It was like putting on a costume every day so that people like me, or that I would be accepted, and I wouldn't look like I'm queer. I would just look like everybody else. I would look normal, and
Yeah.
it was a facade. It was fake.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. And I actually, when I was decluttering, threw out 99% of my dresses because they were just in my closet. I'm like, I'm not gonna wear this. And there's like one dress from like a wedding, so it has like some sentimental value, but for the
Mhm.
most part, whenever I've had to like wear a dress in the last few years, when I try to explain it to people, it's not just a drudgery or an inconvenience. It really feels like I'm a man in a woman's body that's doing drag, except I don't enjoy drag and I'm not at Hamburger Mary's. It's just
Yeah.
like, yeah. I mean, of course, I love seeing drag queens and stuff. But yeah, it was just wasn't me. But anyways,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's really interesting. How we do, how we do have like similar experiences, and you mentioned earlier that you go for it. You're like all or nothing, and I have like the personality where I kind of like meander, look into things, but I don't want to do things unless I'm like really sure, because I'm afraid of making a mistake. And
Mhm.
just like as a side anecdote, so you guys, I was Emmett and I were collaborating on a website,
EmmettPreciado.com.
and we were we were transferring a domain from this hosting site. This hosting site was like latching onto his website domain, and we were trying to transfer it on to like a different hosting site. And I have a little experience with that, and definitely not an expert by any means. And we were collaborating on it, and I was getting stressed. I was trying to show I wasn't stressed. And then within the process, I was like, okay, let's forward this domain from this company, which I'm not going to name, but
Mhm.
and then because the stress of it kind of, I got lost in that stress. And then in your clarity, you're like, wait a minute, no. Well, you're a lot nicer. You're like, wait, isn't this is what we wanted to do, right? We want to get rid of this company, and then we don't just forward it. Let's actually properly transfer it. Even though it was more work and I didn't mind doing the work, but I just kind of like got lost in the chaos of that process. But I just noticed it was a very I noticed at that time you had a certain kind of clear, direct thinking. Like, okay, once we committed to like doing this, don't get lost in the chaos and like do something else. And so that's kind of what I gather. Once you commit to something and going through this process, becoming a trans person is like a huge commitment. And I while I was
I
like,
wouldn't say becoming a trans person because
oh,
I've always been a trans person,
oh,
but
okay, I'm sorry.
like
Okay.
transitioning,
Transitioning.
yeah,
Okay.
that's a commitment, I feel like.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't mean to
So,
interrupt you, but like I just anytime
no.
I see like a teaching moment, I try to jump in just so it like
Yeah. Yeah,
because I
no,
know
no.
it could. I mean, I'm one of those people like I don't really get offended by stuff because I know when people like mean well and stuff, but
Yeah.
I know other people down the line, I would hate for you to get like chewed out by someone else who's like not super like patient or get
Accommodating.
offended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, no. This is good. Well, in that case, so gender dysphoria, and just so I can understand, gender dysphoria and knowing you're trans, it's not always inclusive. Like those
Well,
those things, or they can just be different.
I mean, um, I know that there are trans people who don't have gender dysphoria. Um,
Okay.
me personally, I do have gender dysphoria, so that's why I transitioned because I was extremely uncomfortable in my body. Um,
Okay.
but there's other trans people who they don't have gender dysphoria, or it's very like small, like it doesn't impact them enough to be like, well, I want to start hormones, I want to get surgery. And then
Mm.
there's others like me who our dysphoria is so bad that we're so uncomfortable in our body that we do pursue the hormones and the surgeries.
Okay. So I guess if anyone's listening to this and they are questioning, what's a good way for them to explore that questioning? Because I know we talked about a second ago, you were just so sure, like, I want to do this, I'm going to get it done. That's kind of your all or nothing
Mhm.
mentality. How about for someone else who's just not sure? Like, what would you kind
I would
of.
say honestly experiment with your gender expression, because for me, um I was the most comfortable when the feminine parts of my body were covered. I was the most comfortable. Like I wore a binder and I flattened my chest and I walked around. And I would walk around town with a flat chest and I would walk proudly. Like my posture was straight and I would always slouch to cover up, my chest. And I would walk around town with a flat chest and that I felt so good. I felt so comfortable. I didn't want to hide. Like I just wanted to be out and like, wow, look at me. I have a flat chest. Everybody, like I felt so good. And then I would experiment with, shorter haircuts, or I would wear a beanie. I tried to look more masculine, and the more masculine I looked, the more comfortable I felt. And the more I noticed that my depression would go away, my suicidal thoughts would go away. So for me, it was very clear. Also, I was extremely depressed and suicidal for years. And the more feminine I tried to be, the more depressed and suicidal I got. And I know that, people will say, well, okay, well, you didn't have to transition. You could have just dressed more androgynous or dressed more masculine. But like, for me, it was always my spirit, my soul is male, and it always has been male. And me dressing up as a masculine woman is not me. I'm not a woman. Like my dad, when I came out to him as trans, he was like, why don't you just be a lesbian? Just be a lesbian. Don't transition. Don't change your body. Just go be a lesbian. That's fine. And I was like, but Dad, I'm not a lesbian. I'm not a girl. I'm not a girl who likes girls. I'm a boy who likes girls. I'm not going to dress up in a female body every day and pretend to be something I'm not. And that's for me. And I also went to therapy to really make sure like this is the route that I'm going to go, and like make sure that I wouldn't regret transitioning. But for me, like therapy really helped. And also just really seeing myself as a man and what that did for my mental health. That was when I knew for sure, yeah, I'm going to pursue transition.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear that you kind of came out on the other side of everything.
Kind of like answering your question again, I would just tell people to experiment, try things before you go the route of hormones and surgery. That's irreversible. Those things they have irreversible effects. So try things first, experiment with things that aren't permanent, such as like wear the clothes that you wear, the way that you do your hair, makeup, no makeup, draw a mustache on your face and see how it makes you feel. Like, and if it's something that you're like, oh, I could just draw it and I feel comfortable, but like I don't need it all the time, well, then just do that. Don't pursue hormones, because you will have facial hair forever. So yeah, so and also always see a therapist. I will tell everyone that before you do anything, see a therapist who works with transgender people.
Yeah, and then I'll just add on to that to not get discouraged if your first therapist, whether it's, trans related issues or any kind of issues, it takes a while in my experience, to find therapists that really gel with you and who you get along with and who you feel safe and comfortable with. So yeah, just like your first one wasn't a great experience, and a lot of people have told me they've given up on therapy because our first therapist was not supportive. Just please keep trying.
Yeah.
And then sorry, what was that?
I was just saying therapists are people. So
yeah,
we don't jive with every single person that we meet.
Yeah, you almost have to like go through them in a way like you're dating someone. So
basically, because your therapist does become like a friend. They really do. They know all the intimate parts of your life. So
yeah,
it really is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I guess trying to go back to we kind of talked about this, and of course I'm going to put a trigger warning and any disclaimers in post-production when we come out with a podcast. But you've talked about in your documentary and in podcasts I've heard, just feeling so dark and depressed. While I wouldn't wish those feelings on my worst enemy, because I've been down the road. We've I've called it jokingly like the Cutters Club or whatever. But
Mhm.
would you say, because you've ventured on that side, that it was indicative that it was wrong, like something was not right within you, and that you were willing to do whatever it takes to be a physical man? Because if you couldn't be a physical man, was it your suicidal thoughts? Was like, okay, then there's no other solution. I have to be a physical man. Was that kind of where that anxiety and depression kind of led you to? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I when I was at BYU Idaho going to school after I served my mission for the church, I confided with my uncle a lot. My uncle's gay, and so he was the only person in my family I felt like I could really talk to, who wouldn't judge me, who would accept me for who I was. And I had to call him multiple times a week because I had attempted to take my life a couple times when I was up at BYUI,
Mm.
and I was extremely high risk. Um, and at that point, it was just I felt so helpless because I knew the way that I felt, and I had felt the way that I'd felt the whole 21 years of life up to that point that I had. And it seemed so hopeless to me. Life was so hopeless. It was like the next step for me was to marry a man,
Mm.
to become a wife, and then a mother, to have children. And all of that just like made me feel really sick because that was like, that's not who I am. Um, and I felt like this is the only path for me. Like I'm supposed to do this in order to make my family happy, to make the church happy, to make God happy. Like, but why am I not happy? I'm freaking miserable. And I didn't see a way out. Um,
Hmm.
and the only thing that I saw was you either follow this path or you die, because I was like, the thought of following that path really made me sick. It really made me feel sick, sick to my stomach, miserable. I did not want to be alive. Um, and it's interesting because I was always more depressed when I realized that nothing was going to change.
Mm.
I remember when I was a kid, I had a conversation with my mom, and we were talking about depression, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have depression. I don't get depressed." And she was like, "Yes, you do. You get depressed. You have depression." Um,
Mm.
and I didn't realize that that's what I was feeling, because I was feeling it the time, all the time.
Mm.
Um, and it got really bad when I was younger because I used to I used to pray every night to God and beg him to turn me into a boy. I would beg him to change me into like a male body, because I felt like there was a mix up. Something happened. Like, why is my male spirit inside of a female body? So I used to beg him and pray every single night to change me into a boy in the morning. And I would wake up every morning and check. Nothing had changed. My body was the same. Everything was the same. I looked in the mirror to see if anything had changed. Nothing had changed, because I really truly believed that he could do anything. And when nothing changed, I felt like, wow, okay, God hates me,
Mm.
and he's like, I'm attracted to girls, and I'm also a boy in a girl's body. He really must hate me. And that just like really hit my self-esteem. That's where like my depression escalated. And I tried to take my life for the first time when I was 14 years old because of that. And after that experience, I faked it. I did try to blend in, fit in, tried to be the cookie cutter, perfect Mormon daughter. And it only carried me through till I was 21 years old, because at that point it was like, I am so miserable. I'm going to die unless I do something to save myself, because no one else wants to help me and no one else wants me to be happy. They all want me to follow this path that just does not fit. It does not resonate with me. I cannot do it. And I tried to date men for a really long time and it was not working. I tried very hard to be happy in a female body and it was not working. So it was really, for me, it was life or death.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I am just so grateful that things turned out for the better, and you're here, and y- you are your authentic self. So
I
um.
to go back to what you were saying about the therapist,
Mhm.
that yes, people need to look for the right therapist, because I when I did decide, like, I know I'm trans and I know that I need to transition. Yeah, I need to transition. I went to the therapist I was seeing at BYU Idaho, because she was
Mm.
helping me. She was trying to help me not be attracted to girls, because I was like attracted to all these girls, like
Oh.
around my apartment and everything, and I was really struggling. Telling her, look, I'm still attracted to women, um, and I'm trans and I want to transition. And she told me, well, if that's the direction that you want to go, I can't help you. And then she just didn't say anything, and like,
Yeah.
I walked out the door. Like, that was it. She didn't refer me to anyone. She
Yeah.
basically like gave up on me and was just like, I can't help you with that. And that was like the day that I tried to take my life again, because I was like, wow, everyone's giving up on me. There's no help. I was lost. I had no resources. I didn't know who to reach out to. And then when the attempt failed, that's when I like had this wake up call where it was like, you have to save yourself because no one else is going to do it. And
Mhm.
then that's when I went out and I came out to my bishop and I told him, hey, this is who I am and I want to pursue my transition. And he actually like gave me his blessing. He was like, this is between you and God. This is very personal. So
Mhm.
do what you feel like you need to do for yourself. And then that's when I left. I left the school and I moved down to Utah, and then that's where I transitioned. And my transition freaking saved my life.
Wow. Yeah, so it was definitely the right thing to do. And it sounds like your bishop, I was hearing about him in a previous podcast, that he sounded quite progressive and very understanding. So I am just curious, how involved are you nowadays? I think you mentioned it off the air, but I guess for anyone in our audience who's curious, how involved are you nowadays with the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter day Saints?
Yeah. Um, I am. I was very active when I lived in Utah, um, and then I slowly just started to stop going, because I could only go for so long without people asking me questions. Like I could go and sit down, and the brothers, they would come up to me and they would ask, like, would you like to help us pass the sacrament? And I was like, I can't. I don't have the priesthood. I'm not allowed to. And then
Mm.
they would, give me a look, because it was like, oh, well, you're this age, you should have it. Why don't you have it? Or did you do something wrong? Like, there's this,
Mm.
if you say no, then they know that like you did something, so you don't have it anymore, or you're not allowed to do it. And that's like, it's just like, okay, what did you do? Or why can't you? And then they start asking questions like, okay, well, do you want to get the priesthood and stuff? But it's like, I'm not allowed to because I'm trans. So
Oh, sorry. If I can just pause right there. I know what like a sacrament is in Catholicism, but
mm,
for your church, for our audience members who don't know, do you mind explaining what handing out the sacrament is?
yeah, the brethren in the church, they hand out the bread and the water, and
Mm, okay.
it symbolizes like Jesus Christ's body and his blood,
Okay.
uh, and it's blessed every Sunday, and then they pass it to the congregation. and I was asked multiple times if I could help pass it out, but I had to say no because I don't have the priesthood that the men get in the church.
Okay.
Um, and then also it was like I'd go to the classes, and I was always very open with my bishop. My bishops always knew that I was trans. I wanted them to know that. I didn't want them to be surprised. Um, so I was allowed to go to the men's classes and everything, but then the guys would try to get to know me, and I couldn't like tell them similar stories from their like from my childhood that would match theirs because I was raised and conditioned socially as a woman.
Yeah.
So I was very uncomfortable in social situations trying to relate to these guys because I didn't have the same experiences growing up. I didn't go to young men's, I went to young women's. I didn't go to boys camp, I went to girls camp. I didn't have the same experiences. So I felt very out of place. And it eventually would come out when people tried to get to know me and tried to become my friends. Uh, my past would come up. And a lot of people were very nice about it, but then it was just like I'd go in and sit down in a pew and I knew people were watching me and looking at me. And
Mm.
it was like I couldn't sit in the pew and just feel the spirit. I couldn't just focus on the messages. I couldn't feel good. And it ended up becoming it felt very toxic for me. It was like I dreaded going to church. And I hated that because I used to love going to church and feeling close to God. So I stopped going and I started just like going up in the mountains and going hiking and being in nature. And that's how I felt close to God. And then I moved out to California, and I tried going to church there, and it was kind of the same thing. It was just like I couldn't feel completely comfortable. Um, so yeah, I don't go right now. I'm not going. I'd rather not deal with the judgment. I'd rather not deal with like I've had a lot of amazing leaders who have been like, we see you as our brother. You should be able to go to all the men's classes. But the higher ups in the church have yet to accept trans people,
Mm.
LGBT people in general, to be fully accepted and be able to participate in everything that the church does. And that's where I'm still at. I don't want to be half in, half out. I want to be able to fully participate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't foresee myself really going back until the day comes when they finally say, oh, okay, we call ourselves Christians. We should love and accept everyone the way that Christ did. So if you're LGBTQ, you should come worship. You should be able to participate in all the activities everybody else does. You should be able to go to the temple like everybody else does. Um, and until that happens, I honestly don't foresee myself going back. And that probably will never happen because the church is very it's I don't want to say anything bad about the church because I do love the church and I love how I was raised,
Mm-hmm.
because I really believe that being raised in the church contributed to the kind of person that I am today. But they the church is very toxic when it comes to LGBTQ members. And it doesn't make sense because they call themselves Christians, the Church of Jesus Christ, and yet they don't treat everyone the way that Christ did. They don't accept everyone the way that Christ did. So it's just
Yeah.
really
Yeah. I mean, that seems to have similar echoes with other religions in terms of their stance on LGBTQ, views. And yeah, I mean, I have a friend who's was part of the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter Day Saints, and his father just kind of he hasn't didn't show up to his wedding when he married a man, and it's very heartbreaking stuff. And I can just imagine, especially since you were involved since you were around 4, that it even if you don't agree with everything that they teach, it's just the community aspect and the people that you grew up with, like having to let go of that must be really tough.
oh yeah,
So yeah.
the whole losing a whole community like that, it's really hard because just a whole group of people that I no longer really communicate with. I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends though who have still stuck by my side, like they support me and love me, that I used to go to church with, but I don't get to go every Sunday and see my friends. I don't
Mm.
get to, feel like I'm part of this community anymore. I mean, I am part of another community, but I liked being a part of the church community as well. And now I don't have that. And it's hard because I grew up with it. So
Yeah.
and it hurts because it's like because I grew up in this community, now I'm being shunned for who I am. And it's really painful. It's like your family is pushing you away.
Yeah. That's well, I mean, I really hope that there's going to be, I mean, you've kind of said you don't see things changing, but I mean, um yeah, I'm hoping for you and anyone else that things will progress. I mean, I was actually looking like during my research that in I guess in different parts of the world, I find it really interesting what other countries do for in terms of trans rights. And there's actually in Bangladesh, there was a private school has 150 trans students. And this is actually in a Vice article, and I can link it to you afterwards. And the interesting thing is that they're studying Islam, which is a religion that is very well known for having quite strict heteronormative views.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of great. At least those trans students can study safely and have a safe place to go. And also with Biden's executive order, it came out the first day of office where he just it expressed like equality regardless of gender, and it brought up like a lot of these other topics which are contentious or hot topics on the internet, and especially regarding the safety of women in restrooms or sports. And my LGBTQ friends have been like, okay, well, why are we focusing on this? There's just so many trans people of color who are being murdered or dying. And I mean, how do you feel about, I guess, just the trans community and the conversation about trans rights? And I mean, sorry, that's kind of a big question, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I I do feel we've come a long way
Mm,
as far as talking about trans people.
yeah.
Because even I mean, when I first came out as trans back in 2015, people really didn't know. Like, I really had to explain everything to people when I came out to them. I was like, well, this is what it means to be trans. And like, I had to like really go in depth. And now I feel like if you tell someone you're trans, they kind of understand it a little bit because it is being talked about. Um, but we have such a long way to go. You really, really do. I'm it's it is really sad how many trans youth are homeless. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have support from their families.
Yeah.
It's one thing I've heard this, and I've experienced this myself. It's one thing to come out to your parents as gay, and then it's another thing to come out and tell them I'm changing my entire body, basically. Um, like I'm not going to be your daughter anymore. I'm going to be your son now. Uh, and a lot of trans youth, I get so many messages from trans youth who are just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to come out to my family. My family is very
Mm-hmm.
conservative, and I get that because I my family is very conservative, and it's scary. There are a lot of youth out there, not only trans, all in the LGBTQ spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
who don't have places to go. They don't have safe places to be. They don't have they get kicked out of their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And we need more. We need to really normalize just being LGBTQ in general. We need to normalize being trans and not make it this big deal, and and make it this taboo thing, because these kids are just, they're people, they're kids. There's nothing wrong with them. And to be treated like there is something wrong with you, that needs to stop. You know, we really need to just normalize it and be like, oh, you're trans. Okay, cool. We'll get you the medical help that you need. And I mean, there's a lot of resources out there, but we really need to, we need to keep talking about stuff. We can't just assume that, okay, well, we've had you know, a bunch of PR stuff recently about trans people, we're good now. Like, no, like we need to keep going. We need to keep pushing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to help as much as I can by being open about my story, because I want to help, you know, the younger version of me, the 14-year-old version of me who didn't have anyone to look up to, who didn't have any hope for a future. So I feel like if you're able to, and you have a safe situation that you're in, you should share your story and help make this world a safer place, especially for trans youth.
Yeah, that beautifully put. Yeah, it does seem to start with education, resources. Um, I'll provide links to some helpful hotlines, maybe that you can vet later. And yeah, I mean, just even starting a conversation. It's just hard with the internet. Things get kind of polarized and heated very quickly. It's if someone who's very ignorant, I don't mean that in a mean way, but ignorant in the sense that they just don't know. Like, I have definitely expressed my ignorance in this podcast. But if, like, they don't know and then they misspeak, and then maybe someone, like you said, from the community might not necessarily attack them, but kind of correct them in a way that kind of they push themselves away from learning more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I can kind of see, like, both sides of that. I'll just share this, one story that I have dated a couple of trans women before, and I was talking to a friend of a friend, and they were like, "Oh, that's interesting. Da da da. Does he still have his dick?" And I'm just like, how, I just, like, went on, like, 2 dates. Like, I would never ask that. I mean, that's just, trans issues aside, that's just rude. It's
Mm-hmm.
like going out with a woman and checking, oh, does she have a vagina or whatever. And then, and these were, I don't even want to say necessarily well-meaning, but from their demeanor, they just didn't think it was, like, a big deal. They were just like, no, I mean, a dick is a dick. Just, it's not a big deal. You can just ask them. They won't get offended. And I'm like, you don't know that, they're women now, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of, just to give a taste of what kind of conversations aren't really out in the open, and that are still happening. I mean, and then there's, like, the other kind of deeper down that spectrum of just people being just really not just only insensitive, but actually transphobic. And
Mm-hmm.
those are kind of things that I've experienced. Do you feel like, in your experience, of course, maybe there's a population who will eventually open their eyes, and maybe being exposed to trans people kind of accept it, but do you feel like there's just going to be transphobic people no matter what you do, and there's just, like, that, like, it can't be, I don't want to say cured, but is transphobia something that's just ingrained in them, and there's just nothing you can do? Is it kind of like racism in that sense? Not to, like, say, like, they're the same things, but that kind of fear of, something different.
Well, I think in general, most people are afraid of what they don't understand, and we just resort to what we're taught.
Mm.
Because even when I was a kid, I didn't know the term transgender. I didn't hear the word transgender until I was like 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I was, like, taught, is that like those people were, I was taught they were cross dressers. I was taught that they were freaks. And me personally, I was like, well, that's not me. I'm not that. I'm a boy
Mm-hmm.
in a girl's body. I didn't understand though that like that I was transgender,
Mm-hmm.
but what I was taught was just that these people were like outcasts from society and they were weird. And so I was like, well, then I'm not that. Um, that's what I was taught, and
Mm-hmm.
I was taught that, you know, it's same with gay people. Like I was taught that there was something wrong with them and
Mm-hmm.
stay away. And so, you know, I grew up with the internalized homophobia because I was attracted to girls all my life. So, um, but realizing like who I was, I started to educate myself and learn and real like and learn who I was and learn the truth about the LGBTQ community, and that a lot of the things that I was taught was just false. It was just
Mm-hmm.
all fear based, you know. But I've seen people who, you know, there are people who just simply will not open their minds or their hearts. And then there are others I've seen who knew nothing about trans people and maybe had sort of like a perception of them that was like, I don't know how I feel. I'm not really okay with that. And then they would like meet me, or I would like tell them my story. And then they'd be like, oh, you're just a normal person. Like, I don't understand why I was taught to be afraid of you or to think you're weird. Like you're just a normal person trying to live your life. And I've seen them go and educate their friends, and then it's just this domino effect. I feel like the younger generations are more open minded, to all of this, um,
Yeah.
and so I do have hope for the future that, you know, it's not going to be as weird of a thing when trans kids come out. It's gonna be like, oh, cool, you're trans. All right, sweet. Glad you get to pursue your yourself and be happy, you know, in your body. Um, but yeah, I've seen like my parents even they when I first came out, they were not accepting at all. It was like, no, no, like we're
Mm-hmm.
not even gonna talk to you. Don't
Mm-hmm.
come home. You're gonna be a bad influence on your siblings. Like, just no, we don't accept this. But it took time for them to get used to, you
Mm-hmm.
know, everything. And I knew that it was not just my transition, but it was theirs as well. They had to go through a transition of their own.
Hmm. Interesting.
And
Yeah.
and I had to give them time to mourn, you know, the loss of their daughter, but
Mm.
recognize that they were gaining a son, and knowing that I'm still the same person inside. I'm just going to look different on the outside, and I'm actually going to be happy and look happier on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I never forced my name and my pronouns on them. I never pushed them.
Mm.
I I was very patient with them, and I just said, you know, I've had my whole life to come to terms with this. You are just now hearing this from me. Take your time. I get it, because if dad were to come out to me and say he was a trans woman and that we now needed to use female pronouns and a different name, it would be an adjustment. It would be difficult for me. So I get it. I get it. So I just tried to be very patient with them, and um, and they gradually got used to my name, my pronouns, me as Emmett, because, you know, 21 years I was their daughter, 21 years I was their sister. So now they're starting to get used to, okay, this is our son, this is our brother, and, you know, they support me. Like they don't completely 100% agree with, you know, my with all of this, but they do love me, and they have gotten to a point where like they accept me for who I am.
Mm.
And they'll even defend me. My dad will defend me to people who talk about me behind my back. Like they've got my back.
Mm.
And now my dad will even say, I just don't understand why people can't love their child when they come out. Like, I'm like, oh my God, dad, I love you so much, because this was
Oh.
not you like 5 years ago, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
as he
Yeah.
has, you know, so people can change.
Yeah. He came around. Yeah. He just had to. It took him 5 years to have his own transition.
Yeah.
So that is awesome. And then I you had mentioned earlier that more kids in the future are going to be able to come out sooner or more comfortably as trans, and I'm just interested in your opinion, since you've taken the hormones and then you also advise to not do it unless you are sure. So what do you think, is there an age that's too young to be too sure or too young to take hormones? I know you're not a doctor or anything, but I
I
mean, just, disclaimer, audience, but
so
yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely not a doctor. But for me personally, I was very sure at a very young age of who I was. So if I could go back, I wish I could have started, hormone blockers before puberty hit. I wish,
Mm.
at 11 years of age, I could have taken hormone blockers and stopped the estrogen from changing my body and done something with testosterone. I wish that I could have started my transition when I was in high school. Um, I know it's different for every person, and it just depends because really when you're 18 years old, when you're in your early 20s, you don't really know who you are as a person. You may know your gender identity and you may know your sexual orientation, but you really don't know who you are as a person. And me, I'm still figuring out who I am as a person. And I think it's always it's a constant thing. Like your whole life, you're going to be figuring out who you are. But I feel like there are certain teenagers who, if you sit them down in front of a therapist and they constantly are telling the therapist, this is who I am, this is who I believe I am, this is what I feel every day. If I could change my body and be the opposite, oh my gosh, like I would be so much happier. Like I feel like if they went through enough therapy to really, cement that this is like they know who they are, then yeah, if they're teenagers, then I think they should be allowed to do it. I worry sometimes about younger kids because yes, I knew when I was 4 years old, I was a boy. Um, but I went through the depression and everything, and it really cemented like this was the right choice. And I sometimes I don't know if kids necessarily should transition or do hormones that young. I actually don't even think you can do hormones that young. I think you can do hormone blockers, but I think you should let a kid live how they want to live. If a child does not want to have long hair, they want short hair, let them have short hair. It'll grow back if they decide they don't like it. Like,
Yeah.
let kids play with the toys they want to play with. Let them express themselves the way that they want to express themselves because kids just know. Kids know who they are. They're these innocent children. They know who they are. I knew who I was when I was 4 years old. And I'm kind of grateful that I didn't have the opportunity to take hormone blockers and things when I was a younger age because now I don't take it for granted that I get to look in the mirror every day and see a man looking back at me. Like I don't take that for granted. It means so much more to me now.
Mm.
And it makes me want to fight for other trans youth. So I know that answer was like all over the
No,
place,
that was great. That
but
was
like
great. Yeah.
obviously I wouldn't do anything permanent when you're still developing and you're still a child, but I don't think hormone blockers are really an issue. Um, and I feel like it's when you're in high school, I think if a kid really knows and they're seeing a therapist, let them transition in high school because you're still developing and it's the worst when you don't feel comfortable in your body and you're in high school. Like it's awful.
Yeah.
So, but again, I leave that up to the scientists and the therapists, but just like take your child to a therapist, let them see a therapist because the therapists know what they're
Yeah.
talking about. And they
Yeah.
can tell if a kid is wishy-washy or if like they know for sure.
Yeah, and if anyone in the audience listening is searching for a therapist, what kind of therapist is that? Do you would it be if they were searching on Google,
Mhm.
trans friendly therapist? What are the terms?
So trans friendly
Or I don't
is
know.
more for like, I mean, like typically it could just be a therapist who just is friendly towards towards trans kids, who's not gonna like judge you, like someone who has LGBT experience.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically, you want to look for a therapist who counsels transgender individuals,
Mm.
um, and like you want to check to make sure that they can write letters for hormones, for hormone therapy, for well,
Mm.
hormone replacement therapy, which is HRT.
Yeah.
They can write letters for surgery. Like those are the things you want to look and see if they're allowed, if they're capable of doing those things. Because if they're not, then they're really just someone to talk to. They're not going to help you with your transition
Okay.
or help you deter from transition. If like maybe that's not the route you should go. Maybe you don't need to physically transition, but you can play around with your gender expression.
Yeah.
So, but you want to look specifically for a therapist who can write those letters for hormones and surgery.
Mm. Okay, yeah, thanks for the recommendation. And I guess when you were saying that you were very miserable, like you said around high school, or you imagine like if you've known that you were trans, or if a child is trans since they were young, by the time they hit high school and kind of past puberty or in puberty, that it's going to be super miserable for them because they're not expressing themselves authentically. And you've dealt with people saying, "Oh, but you were such a beautiful woman," or "Oh, have long hair." And I've had um people who meant well. I can tell, they mean well. They're just like, "Oh, I hate it when, like," well, I don't say I hate it, but they're just like, "Oh, why do you have to like shave your head? Like, your hair was so pretty when it was long. Like, my hair grows really fast, so it gets like next year it'll be like this long, and then I'll be sick of it." But it's very interesting how people like to invest in the way someone looks or in someone else's body. I always found that like so weird. Why do you care about how I look for you? It's just so weird. And now that you're an actor, I feel like, well, we're both in industries where we are out there in the music industry and the acting, that with social media and everything, we are under a certain lens. So I am just curious, how do you navigate and, I guess, understand your experience as a trans actor?
Look, I am not here to make people feel comfortable. um,
Yeah.
I'm I was very blessed to have the opportunity to transition. Like I am so grateful I was born in the time where transition was possible. And I grew up relatively, with support from people. I did grow up with it was difficult, and I lost support for a little bit, but I have my family now. Like my family does have my back. I have friends. I'm living in a safe environment. Like I have privilege right now. And I feel like it would be such a waste of that privilege if I didn't do something with it. And that's
Mm.
why I am very open about my story. I did have representation when I was in Utah who they wanted me to go back in the closet and not be openly trans because in
Mm.
Utah's very conservative, and my management thought that um, I would book more if I was not openly trans. Um, but that just did not feel right to me. I was like, no, I worked so hard to get to where I am today. I'm not going to go back in the closet to make people feel comfortable with casting me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to change things. I don't want things to stay the same right now. I want to change things. I want it to just be normal for a trans person to come and say, yeah, I want to audition for your movie. Like, I don't want it to, I really hope we get to a point someday where there's no big fanfare when a trans person gets cast in a major feature film or
Mm-hmm.
a major show. Like it should just be normal. Um,
Like an
So
afterthought. Oh, by the way, they're trans.
yeah,
And
by the way, they're trans.
yeah.
Cool. Not there's a trans person in this movie. Like,
Yeah, because it tokenizes that person in a way. And then it's
mhm,
like they have this extra pressure to represent all trans people.
yes. So I'm trying to be open with my story because I know that there are many, many, many 14-year-old versions of me out there who need to see I can have a future. I can be successful. I can be happy. I can pursue anything I want to pursue in my life. Any dream that someone has is possible. And even with opposition and in difficult life situations, you can do anything you want. And so I've decided with like all of my social media, I'm just openly trans, hashtag trans guy. Like I'm not gonna hide it. And I hope that it just brings some sort of hope for someone and hope for the film industry.
Hmm.
And luckily, like things are changing. They
Yeah.
are, casting more and more trans people.
Hmm.
Um, and they're casting trans people in trans roles. And I'm hoping someday it just gets to a point where trans people can play any role. It doesn't have to be just a trans person.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what I'm trying to work towards. Just
Yeah.
changing things.
Also, one thing, because, we all love our learning moments, our teaching moments. I want to share some. I have so many of them. So, like when we were corresponding off air, I misspoke and said transgenders because not to like excuse any kind of boo boo I make, but it's just I mean, me, like I'm usually like well intentioned, but um I was just thinking of pluralizing something, which is why like I for a while I struggled with like pronouns. Like if it was like one person, I just, my mind in terms of grammar couldn't like put together that they're they. And so luckily I got past that point. I learned. um but yeah, so when I was just thinking, okay, a plural for lesbian is lesbians, and so, but then you kindly corrected me on like proper terms. And would you like to, can you please be so kind to like say, express the different types of terms that are appropriate for your community?
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you bringing this up because it is something that is very common. So I don't want you to feel bad because I know you are well intentioned, and a lot of people are very, very well intentioned. It's just there's not a whole lot of knowledge on the vocabulary because it's relatively new. Um, and it's always evolving too. That's the thing. I know I get that it's frustrating because terminology is always changing and evolving, and one thing will offend one person and another thing will offend another person, but it won't offend another, like a different person. It's just so. But typically, when we refer to like other people who are transgender, we just like we use we really use transgender more as like a term of it's a describing word. It's an adjective because
Sure.
um we'll say it's so like what's usually said is a transgender person, transgender individual, or you don't even have to say the whole term transgender. You can just say trans person, trans individual, trans folks. Um, and the main reason for that is just like I know for me personally, being trans is not it's not just like who I am. It is a part of who I am. I am a lot of other things. I'm a combination. And most people are. We're all combinations of different things. There's not one thing that defines us. Being trans is a very big part of who I am, but it's not solely who I am. I am not just a transgender. I'm a transgender person.
Mm.
We're all people, and we all have different aspects of ourselves that contribute to who we are. Um, but yeah, for me personally, like being trans is just a part of who I am. It's not solely who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I like calling people, I'll just say like trans folks, trans people, a transgender individual, but never just a transgender.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I'm sure that there are some people out there who are fine with that. That doesn't bother them. I know that there's like some of the other terms that people use is like transsexual or transvestite, and like those we don't really use those terms anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for some people that's what they grew up with, and that's
Yeah.
fine with them. And it's same with terms like queer. Like that used to be a very negative word used to describe LGBTQ people, but now we've kind of like taken it back and we're owning it. Like,
Yeah.
no, I use queer all the time, and
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. So I would just advise people to use it as a describing word, and it's we're people.
Mm-hmm.
So just add, person after you say trans or transgender. I hope that explains
Yeah,
it. Or
no, that's very informative and helpful. Thank you, and thank you for being like so kind about it. And I'm always learning things every day, even like someone as myself who identifies being part of the LGBTQ community. Yeah, and and like you said, terms are being modified and can change and be changed. And when I discovered or found out that there were more letters added to LGBT, and then it was Q then plus, and I'm like,
yeah,
how am I gonna keep up? So,
I get it.
but it's a wonderful thing, that there are identities out there that and communities that are going to be recognized eventually. So,
Yeah,
or getting that recognition, I should say.
yeah. And don't feel bad for not knowing. Like I don't even know everything. I don't know like and like being part of the community, I feel bad because I don't know all of the terms. I don't know all of the pronouns. I know there's
Hmm.
there's multiple pronouns.
Yeah.
I don't know all of the flags. Like I don't know
Hmm.
them off the top of my head. It's a lot, but I will take the time to learn and educate, and if someone like takes the time to teach me, like I'm very open to it.
Hmm.
So that's all that matters really, is just being open to it, and I know you are. So
Hmm.
don't feel bad.
Oh yeah, it's just an yeah. I mean, I want to be informed, and I just want to do my best, especially like with something like this, like a podcast coming out. I mean, of course, we can't know everything, but at least I just want to try, try my
Yeah.
best. So, but anyways, oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to mention was that you had said, now these things aren't necessarily identical, and it's not a rule you're making for yourself in any way, but you said that there's more to you than being trans and your trans experience. You have other facets in your life and other interests, of course. And however, you did mention that you do feel privileged to have the the transition, and to be doing acting, and to have these amazing opportunities, and to have that visibility. So you're proud to say you're a trans actor, a trans man, but hope that one day it won't be a thing. So in that sense, do you want to keep holding on to that? I don't want to say label, but just like that emblem of pride, or does something like just being known as Emmett Preciado, an actor from Los Angeles, or is that weird, or is that you know is that in the future, or
I mean, I don't ever want it to like go away.
mm-hmm.
Like I want people to know I'm trans. Um, because like it's just how do I say this?
Take your time.
I want to say it right.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing is, I'm very proud to be trans. Like I'm very proud of where I've come from and my journey. And I'm trying to be a role model for trans youth. Um, to see an example just of some of what they can try to pursue. Like they can pursue hormones, they can pursue surgery, and they can pursue their dreams. um And being trans is not going to hold them back. I want them to see that being trans is not a hindrance. Um, but I want transness
Mm-hmm.
to be normalized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of what's happening in the media with lesbian and gay and bisexual people, is that those narratives are being brought in. People who identify that way are being brought in as characters, and it's starting to come to a point where there's no grand coming out in
Mm-hmm.
any of these like episodes or in the movies. It's just, we have a queer character here, and it's normal. Like, so I want it to get to that point where it's just normal to have a trans person in a role in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
um but I don't want to diminish like the importance of, carrying that label, carrying yourself and being proud of who you are, being proud of who I am as a trans person. um so I don't want to diminish that in any way. I just want it to be normalized. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want it to be such a big deal, because it makes it harder for youth to come out. It makes it harder
Yeah.
for them to feel like they can just fit in and be normal like everybody else. um and then again, it's like, what it even is normal? There's no such thing. So it's just,
Yeah.
you know but the more we normalize it, the more we make it more common, the easier it's going to be for youth to just feel like they can just be themselves, and it doesn't have to be a big major deal, and it doesn't have to be this thing where it's hard for their friends or family to accept them. It's just, oh, this is who you are. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, but beautifully put. Thank you. We were talking earlier about how our experiences, especially if they are, if we're feeling negative or isolated from them, when we feel like we don't belong, we feel isolated. And for me, the arts was very important. Music, songwriting, playing an instrument, honing my energies into something positive. But looking back, it was just a way for me to really survive. And I'm just wondering, I know you said like you had put on plays for your family, and it sounds like that's where you started acting. But did transitioning really, like when that happened, you're like, okay, did that kickstart your acting? Like, okay, this is who I am now. I can be an actor. Or were you trying to act before? Or
Well, I've been acting my whole life, because I was always playing this character. I was pretending to be
oh,
someone who I wasn't.
wow, yeah.
And 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 for me, acting was always an escape. And I know that's something you hear all the time, but it really was like, when I got to dress up as another character and I got to step out of like my body for a little while, and I got to step out of
Mm.
the femininity, like being a character. If I got to play a masculine character, that was great, because no one could judge me, because I'm playing a character. I have to dress this. I, I have to talk like this. There's no one else to play this part. I'm the one who has to play it. So
yeah.
anytime I got to play a male character, I was over the moon, because I got a chance to be myself without any judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I put on a lot of plays where there were more male characters, because then I got the opportunity to dress up as a boy. Um, and so I love that. All my Halloween was the best for me, because I would pick either male or androgynous characters.
mm.
Um, I did not like being a feminine character for Halloween. So I loved Halloween. It was the one time of the year I could be myself, without any judgment.
What I'm curious, what characters did you who were you in Halloween?
So one year, I was, well, actually, I believe it was either kindergarten or first grade. I actually dressed up as a boy. I wore my brother's clothes. My mom drew a mustache on me, put my hair back in
Oh.
a ponytail. I loved that so much.
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do it the next year, but she didn't let me. I believe the next year she made me. It was either, I think it was a witch, and then the following year was Miss Piggy, and then I was like,
Uh.
The next year after that, I was a pumpkin. So I was like, you can't go wrong with a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a pumpkin. Another year I was a scarecrow. Like very like there's no gender here.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I think I wore my scarecrow costume like 3 years in a row because they were made out of like old man trousers, and I just loved that.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I did a bunch of like musicals and plays when I was in elementary, middle school. When I was in 8th grade, we did Mulan Junior,
Mm.
and I got to play Mushu. So it was perfect because Mushu is a dragon, and Mushu is also a dude. So like even in some of the songs I sang like I'm a dude, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those were some of the lyrics. It was like I'm the dude. Um, so it was great. And then in high school, I didn't do any of the acting. I was working. I was a lifeguard. I was saving money. Um, plus, my school had favorites, so
Mm-hmm.
I was just, and I had moved to a new school, so I was just like, they've already got their favorites, so I'm not even gonna try. um, so I kind of, and I was also just really trying to figure out myself at that point too. I was really depressed. I was
Mm.
secretly dating a girl. Um, yeah, it was just trying to be true to myself, but I was really struggling with the depression at that time.
Mm.
And then I didn't start really professionally acting um, until honestly like 2 years ago. Um, yeah, like right before I moved out to California, I got my first principal role in a movie that just came out
Mm.
uh, a couple months ago. It's called The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Ooh,
It's a
okay.
very good independent film. It's really good. It's a kind of like a horror, Christmas horror film with a
Ooh.
werewolf. It's good.
Oh, where
It's
can
funny.
people watch it?
Um, well, I don't know anymore because
Oh.
think I think they like had it streaming for like a little while.
Mm.
It might still be up. It might still be up on Amazon Prime. I believe
Okay.
that's where I watched it, but
Ooh.
look it up and there it'll show you where you can watch it.
Yeah, on
Uh,
IMDb it shows you different places, but
but it's
yeah.
funny because I had 2 lines and I'm at the very end of the movie. I'm literally the last person to speak in the whole movie.
Saving the
so
best for last.
so it was it's kind of funny, but it was my first principal role, which got me SAG eligible,
Mm-hmm.
uh and then at that point that's when my agent wanted me to go back into the closet, and I was like no.
Ooh.
And that's when I decided to move to LA and really pursue my acting career.
Yeah, I mean that seems very common with gay men to stay in the closet. I don't hear so much about. Well, actually, no. I've. It doesn't seem that much so with lesbians, but I kind of I'll kind of retract that because I did hear like one story of a lesbian actor that was pressured to not come out, but yeah, it's very common. I just yeah, that I mean that's very unfortunate,
I think it's
in your
common
case.
for actually I think it's common for all like anyone with any sexual orientation or any gender identity. I think it's just you don't
Mm.
hear about their stories as much, maybe. Maybe
Mm.
that's why maybe like a lot of gay men have told their story, and maybe we just haven't heard the stories from the women or trans
Mm.
individuals. um
Yeah.
yeah, it just depends who tells their story, and sometimes we just don't hear about them, but I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of closeted people in Hollywood.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, I can imagine. It's very interesting with these industries, like the art itself, like is about expression, but there's like this other double sided sword of it where they want to kind of pigeonhole you or kind of repress you, or not you, but just repress the artists in a way. A lot of musicians definitely have different experiences of agents and managers trying to tell them how to guide their image. And even I've had people like tell my bandmate, because they don't want to tell me, but tell my bandmate what they think of me and how I should dress and act and or whatever. I'm just like, I just ignore them. And
Yeah.
so I'm just wondering, what are things about your industry, about maybe the artistic process, if that makes sense, or like receiving feedback.
The main thing is when you are an actor, you're there to tell a story. Um, you're not there to you're not supposed to be there for like to tell like yourself for your image, to promote yourself. Like that can happen. That obviously happens when you do, film, but you're there to tell a story. You're there to become a character. And whatever that character is, whoever they are, whatever their characteristics are, you take that on when you step into their shoes and you become that character, when you play that role, and you leave everything else out. Like your sole job, what they're paying you for, is to play that character. Um, and I'm learning not to take things personally. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to get a job done. Um, and you're getting paid to do the job. Uh, but don't take things personally. Like that's what I'm learning, is not to take anything personally, because it's, are you the right fit for the role? Do you look the right way that they need you to look for this role? I've heard like, it's, you can have two incredible actors, three incredible actors, but it's just, it's not necessarily like you did a horrible job and that's why you didn't get the role. It's like, no, you were all amazing, but this person has the right look, or this person just like said it in a way that like is the character, or there's all different kinds of things that go into it. But yeah, I'm learning not to take things personally.
Yeah, no, that's a good skill to have. I mean, just kind of being on the other side of it, and when I had to like do the casting, and my bandmate wasn't available, it was mostly like his initial idea. He's like, just get two attractive people who look like they're into each other. I'm like, okay, well, how is this gonna fit with the music, the tone? And it's weird when you're casting, at least in my like very kind of minimal experience. It's like, oh, how do you put a face, or how do you create a face in your mind of what you think is appropriate for your project? And I guess part of it is you just also have to see what comes in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just letting the audience know, Emmett's co-star is an actor, Amy Melendrez, who is also became your girlfriend.
Yeah.
So it was just such a wonderful experience, like overall. And the funny thing is just like another side story is that there was like an initial like audition dates. So Emmett, you couldn't make the initial dates, so I met with you separately, like on another, at your apartment, your empty apartment.
Yeah.
Don't want it to sound like creepy in any way. I don't want anyone getting ideas. There's people there. Okay. And then I met Amy after hours, and so she had to like audition with like this different person. And so it was, I never actually got to see you together, so part of me was like, oh my goodness, I hope this works out. I hope they gel because like part of the audition process was like a chemistry test. And so yeah, when we had like a wardrobe fitting, I guess before that I shared an email with photos of both of you so you guys knew what each other looked like. But I guess from what I remember, she remembered what you looked like going to the wardrobe fitting, and we were like running some things, choosing outfits, and I had like a lot on my plate. And so I kind of left you two to like fend for yourselves. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I was just like, okay, you guys socialize,
Come up
have a
with a
drink,
story.
and I'm gonna fix this camera. Um, and then later on, when I was like doing something else, and I was like, okay, well, there is like the initial premise, but actors all the time go off by themselves and make a backstory or like a biography. I was like, okay, you guys spend 10 minutes and you create more subtext. And so I left you guys again. And so I am sounding really neglectful, but no, this
No,
is part of the artistic process. So yeah, do you want to kind of comment on that behind the scenes experience?
yeah, we had to come up with a backstory and basically decided, like, I mean, you want me to tell the backstory?
Oh yeah, yeah, you can. Yeah. Mhm.
It was yeah, we were basically, she came from this really wealthy family, and I was just the poor plumber who was coming in to fix her sink. And we ended up like falling in love over time, and we would go on these dates secretly, and her parents didn't approve. And
Mm.
we fell in love, and we decided that nothing was going to keep us apart, even though her parents wanted her to marry someone rich, but I was just like her true love. And so we did everything we could to stay together. And then something happened where I got like taken away, and I wasn't able to work at her house anymore because her parents didn't approve. And she like ran away from home and like came after me, and it
Oh.
was this like real dramatic thing. And then we ended up together. Like that was that was
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah. Oh man. It's yeah, it was great. And when we started filming, well, especially when we got to towards the end of the day, there are all these romantic premises like set up for the music video, like playing piano together, riding a bike, like sitting and watching the sunset, just and then like at the end dancing together, just really romantic things. And then you had later told me you basically were on a bunch of little dates with no pressure. So
Yeah, yeah, it really did feel like that. It was like our first date, and it was, yeah, there was no pressure because it was acting,
yeah.
you had to do it.
But yeah, I mean, I noticed when I was filming, I was holding the camera and then you guys were like gonna kiss. And then
A pretend kiss,
yeah,
yeah.
well, the thing is like I thought I was gonna film it in a way where you guys weren't gonna kiss, like your silhouettes would cross and it would appear like a kiss. And then the way the lighting was using the sunset, it was very difficult, and then it wasn't coming out right, and I was just like, oh man. And then I think Amy was like, well, we can just kiss.
Actually, I suggested
Oh,
it
you said
first.
that. Oh, okay. Sorry, someone said that. Okay.
I was like, well, if you want us to, like, we could just kiss. Like, I'm fine with it, but I
Yeah.
don't want to sound like a creep. And then
Yeah.
Amy was like, I'm fine with it too. That's fine. We can do that.
Oh yeah, you guys had this running joke that was like, I consent, like so it was good. I didn't have that
You
hanging over me
consented.
that I was like being the creep making you guys kiss. So but yeah, and
Yeah.
and so then when I was like filming it, and then I was and I kind of gave you guys direction on like where to stand and everything, but I remember she like took her hand and like pulled you in, and I was like,
Yeah, it was
oh.
like the first couple takes were very much like, okay, this is professional. This is good. Okay, we're not creepy. This is great. And then there was this one take where I remember I put my hands around her waist, and I kind of like I pulled her closer to me, and her hand, like instinctively, she like grabbed the back of my hair and my head
No.
and like pulled me in.
Oh, well, actually, I think I did two more takes, and like, I think that might have been maybe the second one you're talking about, because there was this one where you were kissing, and then I was just so hypnotized. I kept rolling. I didn't say anything, and then.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh yeah, and you guys like ended your kiss, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm still filming. They're gonna think I'm a pervert, like, but you know what? So I think it's like one of those two that's used in the final, that's going to be used in the final edit.
I
And
want all of the kissing footage. I want
yeah,
all of
I'm
it.
definitely sending them all to you. It's so good.
It
And
was cool because you basically captured our first kiss
yeah,
ever as a
yeah,
couple, like ever.
yeah.
So
Oh my God. And it's so good. I watched it when I was editing it the other day, and I was just like floored. I was like, this is amazing. And when I showed it to our cinematographer, Josh, because he was there like on a couple of days, but can like
yes,
be there the whole time. I showed it to him, and he was like, that's real, Joe, that's real there. And I was like, I know, huh? It's either that or they're really good actors. so so that's why, like, that music video is just so sentimental to me. I want to, make sure it's right and perfect when it comes out, because it means a lot more. I mean, there was like my initial like lyrics and story behind it, but now there's like another added layer of depth, like your love story to it. So it's pretty amazing.
made me
So
blush. But yeah, I can't wait to see it. Like
yeah.
I'm excited for all the footage and everything. It's
Yeah.
it led to something pretty great. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I know it has been the bane of my existence trying to like get it, because like off screen, all like the little mini dramas I've had to to put up with. But in a way I'm kind of glad it didn't come out right away, because in this whole year you guys have like developed your relationship, and then
mhm.
there's just, now that it's gonna come out, there's just, it's almost like an anniversary in a way of you guys meeting. And
Yeah,
yeah,
we're coming up on a year of meeting.
yeah,
Met like a year
it's
ago almost.
crazy. Yeah. So when you asked Amy out, you did so through music. You sang her a song. Oh, sorry.
Oh well, I mean, okay, well she asked me out first actually, but
Oh yeah, I mean, to be official, I'm sorry. Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah,
officially
okay.
asked her to be my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're
Oh yeah,
saying.
yeah. I know. I don't know. I definitely remember that night. That night was also, oh, it was so funny too, because me trying to make sure everyone's comfortable and safe. I remember when I found out, you're trans, and I didn't think it was like a big deal. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. The funny thing was, it just like didn't phase me at all. I was like, okay, as
Mhm.
long as, in terms of choosing you to play the role, I was like, as long as he's good, Kim being trans shouldn't make it better or shouldn't influence my decision. He just has to be right for the role. So, but then when you guys kissed, I was like, oh man, I don't know what her background is. I don't know if she's going to get any repercussions, if she's surrounded by very conservative people. So it would be just good to check. So I checked with you. I was like, does Amy know you're trans? And you're like, I don't know. And I was like, okay. Well,
And
I'll
also
eventually.
because I remember I also had asked you. I was like, because Amy had asked me out, and I
Yeah.
was panicking, and I called you back, and I was like, she just asked me out, and I don't know what to say because like like does she even know I'm trans? What if she doesn't? And
Yeah.
like then she finds out, and then she's just like, no, I don't. Never mind, I take it back. So
Yeah.
can you reach out to her and
Yeah, it
just
was.
like
I actually, when you texted me, I was on. Okay, so at the last day of our shooting, I was like telling you something, and I was driving out, and then Amy was still there. I was like, oh, okay, maybe she forgot something. I don't care, whatever. And I guess she had. That's when she asked you out. She is so amazing and brave, and she's like a boss, by the way, for
it was like
doing
a
that.
movie. It
Yeah.
was like a movie. I walked her to her car, and then I walked you to your van, and then as I was walking back, she I hear my name, like someone's yelling my name, but I was like, wait, did someone just call my name? And then she yelled it again. So I turn around and she's running towards me. Her car is still running and her door is wide open and she left it in the street. and she's running towards me on the sidewalk. And she's just like, yeah, I think you're a really great person and I'd really like to get to know you more. When this whole COVID thing's over, would you like to go out? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I thought it was like she's so brave because it's nerve-wracking to ask someone out.
Yeah.
She's so cute though. And it was just adorable. And then we hugged and then she left. And then I called you right after and I was like, Amy just asked me out.
And then I drove back. And then we were and then I was like, no, I didn't. My plan was to eventually tell her and kind of like, hey, by the way, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And so I had to like expedite the process. And then the funny thing is like I drove back and then we were trying to figure it out. We were like, does she know? And then we were like playing investigators. We were going on your Instagram. We were like, okay, she liked all these posts on your Instagram. And then, but they said like FTM and we're like, yeah, she has to know, right? She has to.
But people don't always look at the hashtags.
Yeah.
I've had people not look at the hashtags and not know I'm trans. So
yeah. And so I called her up and I was just like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if you knew, but like Emmett's trans, like FTM, and she was just like, yeah, I know. It was like, in a way, it was almost, I mean, she's she's a kind person. She would never like be rude, but it was almost like, duh. Like, I was like, oh, okay, just making sure you'd be okay because you guys kiss, and I don't know, like if you come from a conservative background or whatever, if I
remember she told me too, she was like, I thought it was so weird. And because I obviously like we didn't tell her that I was the one who put you up to it. Like I asked you to ask her that night because I wanted to know like if she knew before she had asked me out. So she had no idea I even knew about it. She was just like, yeah, it was really weird. It's like, that was my bad. That was me. But she's just like, it never bothered me. It doesn't like phase me at all. Like you're a guy. And so she's it was really fun. It was really funny because then you called me back and you're like, yeah, no, she knows. She's fine. She asked you out and she knew. So and then at that point I was like over the moon, just like, wow.
Yeah. That definitely lifts the pressure off because then you don't have to have that fear of like, of being rejected or having like something like retracted, like an offer retracted. I feel like that would not be good. But everything
I've had that happen.
Oh,
someone finds out I'm trans or I tell them that I'm trans and then they're like, no, I don't date trans men, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I was afraid of that happening with her.
Yeah.
So I'm very open. And any person I've ever dated, I always just tell them I'm trans from the start. Because I just feel like that's something they should know. And she just never had a problem with it.
Yeah. Awesome.
She thought I was really cute. I was like, oh, okay. I think you're cute too.
Oh my gosh. This
being all mushy, and everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, can you just shut up and go back to the
no, like I love these stories. I mean, I'll have some timestamps, so if anyone wants to go to like the hard pressed issues, they can. But I live for this. I think it's just like an amazing story. I mean, it's a beautiful story of life imitating art. You enacted something very romantic and beautiful, and it transferred onto your personal lives. So that's super great.
Well, you're quite the matchmaker.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I try. So
I I know what the whole music video was for. Yeah.
It was to put
And I'm
two
grateful.
strangers together. And I'm happy to do so in any way. Like I told my you haven't met my bandmate yet, but I told him about the whole story, and he just gets so amazed by it. He's like, that's amazing. He's like, and then he also said the same thing. He's like, you're so good at setting people up, but you don't have good luck yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Oh well.
Oh,
Like
you'll get there. The right person is coming.
yeah.
You need someone like you to matchmake for you. I'm doing another music video.
Oh gosh. Yeah. That's a good idea.
You
But
could ask for someone to play your significant other and then just like,
oh no, but see the thing is like then that itself it can be like pervy. It's like, oh well,
true.
she's starring in this so she can kiss a bunch of guys or whatever, and
Hey, if
yeah.
they want the role, they want the role. I mean,
God. They'll do any that makes me feel good.
oh,
They'll do anything.
I mean, not anything, but like,
Yeah. Oh no. I'm just saying like they'll just like stoop so low and have to kiss me to like
oh
get a
no, no. Don't talk about my friend that way.
Oh, but anyways, yeah. I'm good at the self-deprecating humor and stuff. But oh, also, you do mention I see a piano behind you. When you asked Amy to officially be with you, um you had music, you wrote a song. So, other than your acting gigs, like you want to do music as well. Do you want to like tell our audience just a little about your musical interests and
Yeah.
endeavors?
Well, I've been writing songs since I was 10 years old. I believe the first song I wrote, the title is it's My Family's Love. It was a very, very cheesy song, but I've been writing since I was a kid. And music was also another escape for me. When I was depressed and suicidal and lonely, I would go for walks and just listen to music constantly, and that was my escape. Especially like instrumental music. I love movie soundtracks.
Mm.
Very, very big Hans Zimmer fan.
Mm.
Just lots of um music that just like really moves your soul. Like that's the kind of stuff I love to listen to. The stuff that like you really connect to on a deep level. Um so music's always been my passion, and I was singing since I was young. If I could talk really. And then I when I was in high school, I was in all-state choir for 3 years in a row. And like
Mm.
music was always a thing. Band, I was in choir, show choir, everything. Um the thing is, so I was an alto, and then
Oh.
when I started taking testosterone, my voice dropped, and it dropped really fast. Um so I tried doing choir again, and they were like, yeah, you're bass now, basically. And I was like, okay, this is really weird. And my range obviously has changed. It's just dropped a lot. So it's frustrating because I can't sing like I used to.
Mm.
I can't sing up high like I used to, but I can still do the falsetto, and I can do really, really, like deep. So right now I'm learning how to control my new instrument, because it is like a totally new instrument. You go through puberty, and like my voice my voice still squeaks sometimes, so it's still changing.
Mm.
So it's frustrating because i I was so good with my instrument before, and then transitioning, it's like a whole new instrument that I have to learn how to use again. So I'm still learning how to use it. So I do want to pursue music down the road. I just feel like I need to learn how to control what I have right now, because
Mm.
it does keep changing, but I feel like it's starting to finally mellow out to like, I know what like my range kind of is. And it's just figuring out like how to use tone again, and how to sing the notes with proper tone, because I could never sing as deep as I can now before. So
Mm.
I'm learning. I just want to be able to harness my new voice before really getting into music again.
Yeah.
Because it's scary. Like it's scary going from 21 years of a voice that you just
Mm,
know how to use to all of a sudden, boom, your voice drops in 2 months, and it's like, and it keeps changing and cracking and squeaking,
mm.
and yeah. So I have a very deep love for music, and I really do want to pursue it, when I have figured out exactly what I can do with my new instrument.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks so much for sharing. I mean, I guess even though you were so happy to kind of be in your new body, I guess that's probably one thing you kind of miss. Like the comfort of your previous vocal range. I actually did I dated a trans woman who had auditioned for one of those really popular singing shows when she was used to be a man, and she had told me that she had this fear when she transitioned that she would lose that opportunity and lose her voice and have to kind of like start over. So that's, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a legitimate, concern for sure.
Music's
Yeah.
a way to express, and I felt like when my range was, going deeper and deeper and deeper, I was losing the ability to sing songs that I've always sang when I wanted to express myself. Whenever I felt angry or sad, there were certain songs I would sing and I would belt at like the top of my lungs. And then when my voice started to drop, I couldn't sing those songs anymore in the range that I was singing. I had to drop it an octave, and it was like,
Mm,
it was like I can't vocalize the way I want to. I can't express myself the way that I want to. And it's very frustrating. Um,
mm,
it's not as frustrating now because I'm finding other
mm,
songs and other ways to sing, and other songs that have a higher range for men. So I'm able to like project if I want to sing loud, and if I'm upset or sad or something. But it was very, very frustrating to lose that.
yeah. Well, you are one of the hardest working people I know, so I'm sure with a good vocal coach and just practice, you'll eventually, make some progress. And I do have like a vocal coach who's pretty good if you want her number later. So, yeah. When I get interviewed by Filipino journalists that are like, okay, well, how come K-pop is so big? Why can't Filipinos have this breakthrough in entertainment? And I was like, I thought the answer was easy, but it's not. The execution isn't there. It's like Filipinos are being written as either prostitutes, exotic people, or nurses, at least in like American media, because that's how the writers can categorize us and pigeonhole us. It's
Mm.
going to, and there these journalists are asking me, what is it going to take to get past that? And I really think the root of it all is just to have like a Filipino producer, a Filipino writer who can write from those viewpoints. And so, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like, aside from casting trans actors, do you feel like the producer should have trans experiences, or the writer as well? What are your thoughts on that?
I think if we can include trans people in the writing process at all, like that's so important, because you need someone who's lived the experience to write the experience, like not someone who has never experienced what it is to be trans writing about a trans narrative, I think if there isn't, a trans individual who is able to write that narrative, then at least include trans people in the narrative. Like if if someone who's not trans is writing something, then they should bring in trans people to help them write it, so that they
Like a
can act
consultant.
exactly like a consultant. Um, because yeah, it's it's a smaller population of people in the world, but it's still, what 1% of the human population is still like a million
Yeah.
people. That's still a lot of people.
I'm wondering about that. Is that small that's small percentage is just the percentage that's just reporting, right? I mean, I can just imagine it would be bigger if people were in the position to come out,
If it
you
was
know?
safer,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I'm sure there's that number is actually a lot larger,
Yeah.
but even still, it is still comparably, I don't know, it's still a small percentage compared to the world in
Yeah.
general. Um, so it's, you know, it's amazing when you have someone who is of trans experience, who is the sole writer or the sole creator of something or the producer of something, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not common. So I think it's just very important to bring in people as consultants who have had that life experience, so that it is accurate and authentic, um, and that they're real stories being portrayed.
Yeah. I can just imagine just watching something that had, like, if you're trans and you watch something that may be like a little outdated, and watching like a trans character and just be like, I wouldn't act that way. I wouldn't be this way. And so it's kind of like telling, they didn't bother to bring a consultant or anyone in. The people are writing from whatever kind of prejudices or biases that they have.
Yeah,
Um yeah.
I've read scripts, for auditions and things, and roles I've played where I can clearly tell they've included trans people in the writing process, and then in other ones I'm like, I don't think you consulted anyone, you just kind of looked at Google.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I love when I read something where it's like it is so well written, it's so like I relate 100% to that. I know that they brought someone in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very important, I feel like, to have that representation. And if you don't mind answering one Q&A question, this is from Paul from the Vicurious podcast. He said, could you ask, what type of resources should those who aren't part of the community who would like to help assist, especially in the Los Angeles area, should and can do to assist? Like what can someone in LA who wants to be an ally, what are resources for them?
So there are a lot of there's so many resources, and um LA is so big. So I only moved here like a year and a half ago. So I still am learning all of the resources and things, but
Mhm.
like the most common things, especially if people want to become allies and they want to educate themselves and learn, the LGBT Center, in Los Angeles, they have a great website,
Mm.
and there's resources all over their website. And they're constantly, well, I don't know about COVID, but I know before COVID and everything, they were holding workshops and lots of different, activities and events that people could come to. And it's not just for the like the LGBT community. Anyone could come in and learn. Um, they were always handing out flyers and brochures and things. So they're an excellent resource. Another resource is the Trevor Project.
Mhm.
They have a lot of information on their website, and they're specifically geared towards helping LGBTQ youth who are struggling with suicide, and suicidal thoughts. Um, Honestly, their websites are both like the standard. I would immediately go there. Um,
Yeah.
and you can always, uh, look up, like you can Google, or, I would look up like vocabulary and terms and things, just educating yourself, as far as the right terminology and words to use, and especially trigger words,
Mm.
um, because again, like what I was saying before, I don't usually get offended when I hear certain words, but there are other people who haven't developed, um, thick skin yet. They're young, especially youth. Youth are more sensitive to those words. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, especially going on the LGBTQ, the Pride Center website, and, the Trevor Project website, learning the terminology. That's a huge thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then just paying attention to people that you might follow on social media who are of LGBTQ experience. Go to their pages, see what they post, and honestly, one person reaching out and saying, you know, I support you. I think you're amazing. I think you're beautiful. I think, you know, you have such a bright future ahead of you. That can make all the difference for someone, really. I mean, it helped me so much just knowing that there were people who supported me and saw me as a person, as a human being, and not saying that there's anything wrong with me, but like seeing me as a valuable person in society.
Yeah, beautifully put. Thank you. Paul, I hope that answers your question or at least leads you to the right direction. So thank you for that awesome question. And I know we are going to have a kind of like a respite because Emmett's shows are coming out within the next week and a half, and we can't spoil them in any way. He's obligated to not give out any spoilers, so we will just reconvene briefly to just get an update on those shows and those experiences. I'm a fan of one of those shows, and so I'm just super excited, and I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to do this. You're very generous with your time, and also that you're like very vulnerable and open to sharing your experiences. And I'm sure if there's a trans teen out there struggling and they get a hold of this, or just anything that you appear in, all your other interviews and articles and documentaries are just so impactful. So thank you for doing what you're doing. If you are considering suicide and age 24 and younger, contact the Trevor Project Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255 and is available to people of all ages and identities. Trans Lifeline, for people who are trans, non-binary, or gender non-conforming, can be reached at 877-565-8860. All are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Pepe, aka Joanna Glass from the band Glasspirits, and this is the Pepe and Ybra show. And we just took a quick respite so Joanna can catch up on all the shows that Emmett's in, because he is blown up, and he's here. He's being so kind. Hi. He's being so kind and generous with his time. Hi, Emmett. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming back again to, kind of finish almost like the epilogue of your story, but almost like the start of your booming career.
Oh,
and yeah, so the first thing you were telling me about this show, Good Trouble. And and just from reading about it, you appear on the first episode of the third season, and I'm just like, crap, I don't have a lot of time. And then I guess me, who wants to like feel a sense of completion, it's an actually spin-off of The Fosters, and I'm like, oh great, like I'm really not gonna know what's going on. So I watched it without any reading about any kind of synopsis. I had no idea what the hell was going on. and then I'm just waiting for Emmett to come on. And I'm like, oh, there he is. And then like I just kept rewinding it. So so you had like a nice line about swatches.
Yeah, just like in one line in the first episode. So, you blink, you'll miss me, but
yeah, so please tell us about this show, and please tell me that we're gonna see a lot more of you.
Well, yeah, no, it's a really great show. I love I watched seasons 1 and 2 before I got cast, and the show talks about all of the things that need to be talked about, but in such a beautiful way. A lot of current events and topics and things that are very important. And they follow the lives. Well, now that Callie and Mariana are like grown up and they're adults, and it follows them living their lives, their careers. But they brought me in. I am one of Callie's coworkers now, and yeah, there's a bunch. It's a very exciting season. I'm very excited for everyone to see all the episodes, and um in the upcoming episodes, I have more than just one line, so
Okay.
you will see more of me. But yeah, I play a young, book smart, kind of geeky lawyer. Um, yeah, it's exciting. I don't want to give too much away. So
Oh, okay. So you're teasing us, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, just to support and kind of like refute me being so clueless about the show, it does look like a high quality, really good show. It's just unfortunate I never got into it before. So now that I have Hulu, I can go back and watch the previous episodes. So uh just in case our listeners are curious, they can watch it on Hulu and any other platform. It's like, is it freeform
it's
or?
freeform,
Okay.
freeform. And I know there's like a whole list of ways that you can watch it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, but I even I I don't currently have the streaming for it, so I had to wait until the next day to watch it on Hulu. So I'm like watching the live tweets, and I'm just like, "Yep, I know what's happening because I read the script, but like, I use my imagination." But the show is so artistically done. Like
Mm,
the shots they're just
they're
it's
gorgeous.
beautiful. Yeah,
Like the capoeira.
yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah,
They do such an amazing job.
yeah.
They make everybody look so freaking cool. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, it's a really great show.
Okay, that's so good to hear, and I'm looking forward to watching more episodes with you in it. And it's almost like when you know someone first before you see them on TV, it's really surreal. It's like I don't know how to describe it.
It's
I just have
weird.
to like keep rewinding it. I'm just like not used to it yet. I mean, I'm used to the idea of you being a successful actor, but I just yeah, I was kind of like freaking out. Okay. Another side story I want to kind of like clue our listeners into was that a while ago we had collaborated on, on your website, and this is this is the second time we're talking about your website.
Preciado.com.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was well this part of the story, it's not so painful, like the whole domain transferring thing. What, like, oh my god, that was a headache. But I was talking about like ways you can share articles from news outlets,
Mhm.
and I kept using Forbes magazine as an example. I was like, yeah, so pretend you have an article on you about Forbes magazine, and I remember specifically saying, yeah, I know it seems like very grand, but you know, let's stay positive here. And so I kept like using that an example, and like, okay, this is where you would share the magazine, this is how you'd like embed it, da 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 da. And then Emmett appears in Forbes magazine, and when I saw that, I like flipped out. I was like tripping, like, please tell us about that experience. And that was
I
amazing.
I re- yeah, I remember that conversation, and because I remember you said like Forbes, like what was like 40 under 40 or something, or like just like it was like way out there, but you used it as an example. And then when I got the call that they were going to be doing a piece on me in Forbes, I was like, this is a joke, right? Like I didn't think it was real. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, you manifested that. You put it out there, and the universe heard it, and they're like, okay, we can deliver. So the universe delivered. It was a freaking honor to be interviewed for that, and the article was so beautifully written.
Mm.
Um, it made me emotional reading it. I know it made a lot of my friends and family emotional reading it. Like, it was beautiful
Ooh,
and just such a privilege. But it was
awesome.
so surreal. It was
Well, I might have mentioned it, but I'm not really a manifester of other people's success. However, I think that you believed it, and so I think that helps too. You have to believe,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it talks about The Good Doctor, and yeah, I have been a fan of The Good Doctor, and I had to play crazy catch up because I've been, really busy lately. And I love that show. I love the cast. I've watched the Korean language or the Korean version back when it came out, years ago. So it was, the whole series is really amazing to me, and the concept. And yeah, this season I pretty much cried like every episode. That's how I do things. And and so and when I saw yours, I tripped out again, like seeing your name in the credits. I was like, whoa, this is really crazy. Like, because it was like it's not like you were appearing on like some random, public access thing, or it's like you were on a show I have been watching. So it was really surreal for me too. So yeah, please, tell our listeners about that experience. And yeah, and
Oh, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, hands down. The Everyone there was so nice. The cast, the crew, um, everyone involved, that I met throughout the entire process was just, they were all just so friendly, so nice and genuine. Like, it was almost like I feel like at any moment now something's gonna happen and everyone's just gonna finally like let go, but like no, like everyone is genuinely nice.
yeah.
And so it was just like it was amazing. The director, oh my gosh, he was he brought things out of me that I didn't even know I had inside me. And he just um I was surrounded by so much talent and so much skill, and it was very like daunting, intimidating, because I was just like surrounded by all these incredible people. And um but they didn't make me feel like I wasn't also, like, I wasn't as skilled as they were. They were just like, no, welcome to the family, like we want you here, we're so happy that you're here with us, and we're gonna make an incredible episode together. And um yeah, it was just an incredible experience.
Oh man. And you did such a good job. When you first came on, I couldn't understand what was going on because like my hearing went out. I just kept freaking out, and I just kept having to watch the beginning over and over, and then I kind of got over it. And then you did such a good job where I just forgot it was Emmett, and then I was just thinking, "Oh, this is Rio's story," and let's support Rio. And yeah, I get a little teary eyed thinking about it. But is there? I guess I won't spoil it for anyone who wants to go watch it. It's season 4, episode 9, and without spoiling it, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience about the issues? Maybe any possible misconceptions, or or just anything you want to add?
Yes. So just like any other storyline and um any other like episode or show, um one story is not everyone else's experience. This is just one experience that a trans person can have, um and that is, the possibility of getting pregnant as a transgender man. um and just so that, and if if this does spoil something, I mean, it's all over the media right now, so like,
I mean, that Forbes headline kind of gave a lot away.
exactly. So but if you want to like tell people to fast forward and skip this to a certain time, because I might spoil something, but not um not all transgender men can get pregnant. Not all transgender men choose to get pregnant. Not all transgender men want to get pregnant. Um, and in this instance, I know that in the dialogue it talked about, like, the Rio did not, he skipped his shot a couple of times. And so that was like the window where he got pregnant. But I do want to make sure that people do know that testosterone is not a contraceptive. It's not birth control. It will not, like,
Mm.
taking testosterone alone is not going to be like, well, I'm not going to be able to get pregnant.
Mm.
You should be on birth control if you're planning on, not getting pregnant. However, testosterone is very effective in keeping you from getting pregnant,
Mm.
but it is not, completely 100% like testosterone will stop you from getting pregnant. That's not true. So,
Right.
and in this case, they weren't saying that because he was on testosterone, he, shouldn't have been able to get pregnant, but that was just like, his fiance was just like, it's a common misconception that most people think, well, he's on testosterone, so how could he have gotten pregnant? And the fact that he skipped his shot a couple times, that was the window where Rio got pregnant, but that does not happen all the time. That's a very rare thing.
Mm.
Um, so if anyone out there is thinking that they're fine to continue having sex and only take testosterone and think that they're not going to get pregnant, that is not true. You should be on a form of birth control. Um,
Okay.
and I would just say to everyone to just be open to the storyline. I mean, obviously, everyone makes their own choices and everyone's choice is valid. And, um, you know, I think it is a beautiful thing if someone has the ability to carry a child and have that experience, for 9 months with their unborn child. I think that's a beautiful thing. Um, whether you're male or female, like whether you are a man or a woman, if you have the ability to do that, you have the organs to do that, um, then go for it. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think what the Good Doctor is doing is really amazing. Putting issues or people, diverse people and situations in the forefront of such a popular show, just making light of them, creating awareness. I just think overall it's just so awesome. I was
Mhm.
obsessed. I was going on message boards and just to hear like what other people think. I mean, I have my own opinions and things, but like a common thing, not necessarily specific to the Good Doctor, I would hear is that why are they pushing this wokeness, the forcing us to have all these to use all these pronouns, and and as of recently there has been a studio who fired an actor, probably for more reasons than we would know publicly, but one of the most talked about reasons was possibly this actor wasn't supportive of trans rights or specifically the use of pronouns, or maybe, and it was a popular saying that this actor was even mocking the availability of pronouns. And I am not at the position to think about the other issues they're being kind of accused of, but I did think about the trans rights issues, and I just feel like, well, it's understandable that there's so much to learn about trans rights and pronouns, and we kind of talked about it earlier, and that if you're just not sure and you don't want to kind of be virtue signaling because your peers are, and you just need time to figure it out, I think that's okay to kind of say, hey, I need to know more. I think that's okay in my opinion. But I think what happened was it was like kind of like a misguided attempt at humor, or could be seen that way, irrespective of possibly how they really feel about the issue. And yeah, I just wanted to know like what your thoughts are now that you're in these shows, you're having these peers who could or could not be supportive of the pronoun space. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. No, I I understand that it is difficult, um, to keep track of all of, there are a lot of pronouns, and I still, sometimes don't pronounce them correctly, or I forget people's pronouns, but I try to be very respectful, because I my pronouns are he, him, his, and I am very grateful that people recognize that and they use my correct pronouns. And I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to have someone use the incorrect pronouns. It's a horrible feeling, and so I don't want to make anyone else feel that way.
Mm.
um it's just but it's so important, especially to other people's mental health, to just respect their pronouns. It is not that difficult of a thing to do, and if you mess up, it's okay. People most of the time will be understanding that you're not being malicious, as long as you are trying. But to purposely make fun of the fact that there is an option for people to put in their pronouns, to make light of that, that's just so disrespectful. And it's not funny, and uh, it's rude. And I don't understand why there are people that feel like that is okay, because honestly, that is bullying, and that shouldn't be tolerated. And I congratulate the studio for firing this person, because that was very disrespectful.
Yeah.
I think, we should just all just try to be respectful of each other, of each other's pronouns, because honestly, like, we're all on this big blue planet together, trying to make it through life, and life is difficult enough as it is. So let's just try to help each other, and make this world a better place, make this world a safer and happier place. Um and honestly, just respect, just mutual respect. I mean, if you want to be respected, you have to give respect as well.
Yeah. That was beautifully said. Yeah, and when you mentioned earlier that it was, bullying, because I've heard mocking, but bullying, I was like, yeah, it is kind of like a microaggression, and this person standing or basking in their cis privilege in a way. So yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. And yeah, it's so important to hear hear this opinion from someone like you who's experienced this. And what are your thoughts about studios taking kind of action like this? And because people can argue, well, it's, their private profile, they're, if they're being respectful to people on set and maybe treating trans people on set with respect, how does a studio act on someone's actions offset or in their private life?
I mean, ultimately, I mean, you can't really control everyone's actions, but it comes down to being on set. It's a work environment, and just like any other work environment, the company needs to make sure that they have a safe work environment for all of their employees. So harassment and bullying, just because you happen to be rich, or you happen to be famous, or both, doesn't mean that you all of a sudden can it's okay for you to make the work environment hostile or toxic, or unsafe for other people. um and that's I think that's what they're doing. They're being very responsible with that. They're like, no, this is a workplace, and you're our employee, and I don't care how rich and famous you are, or how big your platform is. You are still our employee. We employ you. And if you are, going against HR's standards, for a safe work environment, then you will be terminated, or whatever they have in place. And that's honestly the way you have to see it. Just because it's film and TV doesn't make it any different. This is still a workplace.
Yeah, you actually mentioned something. If someone is making statements on a public platform, and they have a lot of followers, and they are saying things kind of against companies' mission statements, then I can see why that would be problematic. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate. And, yeah, I have kind of like no sympathy for that person. But I hope overall this is, can be like a teaching lesson for people who are observing and can understand, like, how important this is. Yeah.
We are coming into a time where finally people are like, it's people have been fighting for a long time for equality and for fairness, and you watch things from like even 20 years ago, and there's things that's like, oh, you can never say that on TV now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I understand, like, it people complain all the time, like, well, now you can't say anything because you're going to offend somebody, but that's not necessarily the case. It's just we're coming into an era where it's finally like, okay, you can't joke about someone's identity. You can't make fun of someone because they might have some sort of I don't want I don't want to be like not politically correct, but just like, if someone has a mental health issue, that's not a joke anymore. You don't joke about that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
This is a person's life, and it's not their fault. So we're finally coming into an age where it's like, no, respect, or we're gonna kick you out.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, because that means that we have people that that you have someone who has your back. That you're gonna have a safe work environment. That you're supported, and I'm so grateful. My work environment is very safe and very healthy, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. That is, I'm grateful for that too, and that you can thrive and everything that's going on with you. I'm just kind of vicariously on cloud nine. So, oh, by the way, what was it like working with Freddie Highmore? I mean, all the actors are amazing. Of course, I love all the actors, but I've been a fan of his since Bates Motel. So and his earlier works, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, I've been a fan since Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was the first time I saw him. But August Rush, I have it on DVD. It's one of my favorite movies, and that I've watched it like at least 20 times. It's such a good movie. I've loved him since then, and then was such a huge fan. And so when I found out I was going to be able to work with him, I was so ecstatic. I was kind of worried because they always say don't meet your heroes, but he was definitely one of those people that you meet and you're just like blown away, because he's so nice. He was so nice. He talked to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's talking to me. Why is he talking to me? I just like hit my camera. I'm so and
it's all Freddie's fault. You made him hit his camera.
I got to walk and talk with him before we were filming, and I should have just stopped at a certain point. But when you get in front of someone that you just admired for so long, you just kind of like throw up verbally all over them. And I just should have stopped while I was good. We were having a great conversation, and then I just kept going. And I was like, I think I started saying stuff like, you know what? I'm really glad that you're actually nice in person, because you meet some people who are just not really nice in person, but like you're a good person. I can tell. And I'm relieved. And I just kept going and in my mind, I'm like, shut up. Stop. And he just like looked at me, and he's just like, yeah, I'm trying. I try to be a good guy. And I could tell that I was like, he probably thinks I'm a freak. He probably thinks that I'm stalking him. I don't know. I was just like, stop. And then there was a meeting and everything, so that got me to stop talking. And then after that, I was like, he's never gonna want to talk to me again. But it was fun. We actually in the scene where I'm in the wheelchair, he was having a blast with that wheelchair, because he liked to hit the brakes or whatever, and it was like anytime he would drive with the brakes on, it would make like these really loud noises. So you could just hear us from a mile away. So he'd purposely be doing that, and then he would pop wheelies while I was in the wheelchair, and I wouldn't be ready for it, and all of a sudden he'd just pop a wheelie, and I would like freak out. He had a blast. It was fun. He was so funny. So Freddie got to push me in a wheelchair like a race car, and He's very nice, very friendly, and he's insanely talented, just so
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure and a privilege working with him. Freddie, if you're listening, I promise I'm not that weird. You're amazing.
No, he really is that weird. No, just kidding. Oh my god, I'm gonna trip out if him or anyone else from The Good Doctor watches. Actually, if he is watching, hey Freddie, don't.
And he really will never talk to me again.
Yeah, that sounds like you had a blast, that everyone was awesome. I think we mentioned earlier, and I'll say it again, that you are in Glasspirits' Mexican Baby music video along with your beloved Amy Melendrez. That's going to be coming out soon, and Emmett hasn't seen it yet, and I'm so excited to like tighten it up and get it together, and it's going to be amazing, I think. So yeah, and then we're also going to be having Amy on. I record her episode this week, so it's good. This is all exciting. Is there anything else you want to mention coming up for you? Or I know everything's like so hush hush, but anything,
Well, now the Good Doctor's out, so that's we can freely talk about that. And then Good Trouble, just keep watching. Season 3 is out now. Well, the first episode's out now, but now I'm excited to finally be able to like share that with the world. And I'm just really, really grateful, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities that have come my way. I'm so blessed, just so very blessed, and it's kind of cool to be like to be in the Good Doctor. I'm weird like this. So the Good Doctor, and the character's name was Rio, and then now I'm in Good Trouble, and my character's name is Rowan.
Whoa.
So I'm seeing the things that the universe is bringing in, the similarities, the coincidence.
Okay.
But I'm very, 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 very happy.
Is there a relationship between the word good and the letter R?
Yes, that's it. So I'm just like, okay, keep bringing the goods in. I'm good with the good. The good is good. And then I just kind of thought it was funny that it was R and R. So
yeah.
We'll see what happens in the future, but I'm nerdy like that. I find that kind of stuff all the time. So yeah, no, I'm just thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm thrilled. I can't wait for the music video to come out. I can't wait to finally see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait for you guys to see it too. I'll put links in the description of the YouTube videos, but for those who are listening and maybe, are driving or doing something else, listening passively, how can people find you? Where can people find you? You want to shout out your social media handles and website?
Yes. I have, my website is emmettpreciado.com.
Emmettpreciado.com.
And all of my social media, like Instagram, Facebook, it's just Emmett Preciado. And then my YouTube channel as well, just look up Emmett Preciado and I'll come right up. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, his YouTube channel, well, all his social media is really awesome. You'll see time lapses, like really interesting, good content video about his journey and being trans and everything, and you do so much for the community, so thank you so much for that. Yeah.
You get a little overwhelming at times, but I'm trying. I haven't posted a YouTube video in a while. I'm most active on my Instagram. And I've been updating my website, but there are more exciting things to come, and I can't wait to share them.
Okay, I can't wait. Thank you so much again, and so thank you. And so that's it for this episode. It should be a nice, long, pretty kind of impactful episode. So that's it. Thank you for listening to Pepe and Ybra.
Welcome to our surprise segment. Now it's time for a visit from Madam Pepe.
Welcome to Tero Time. You can call to me Madam Pepe, and I am in this place to show you the good fortunes of our guests. What I do, I summon the informations combined with cards so that you and our guests can receive learnings. Okay, let's go. Now I'm going to shuffle. Okay, so now we are having here intuitions for Emmett Preciado. Okay, what do we have here? Common universe. Okay, here we go. What is this? Ah, two of cups. Perfect card, just perfect for Emmett. So, what does that mean? What I am looking at here is that there's two people brought together. They could either be deep friends or lovers or making vows to each other. Okay, so they're holding cups, and cups can be filled with water, and water signifies dreams and dreaminess and emotions. Okay, so this is done in such a kind manner. There's a humanoid form hovering above them with snakes intertwined. Well, you know, that is not a bad omen. Okay, it signifies health. It means that Emmett is taking healthy precautions to keep his relationships healthy. Okay, and when you have healthy relationships, you'll have healthy business and healthy everything else. So this is a great start, and I very much like this card for Emmett. The person here just looks just like him. Very little people have such talent for acting the way Emmett does. So Emmett, if you're listening, I want you to keep being healthy in your relationships, and that way you can keep going in your acting and prosper. Well, that's it. I enjoy very much to bring good news and fortunes. Thank you for visiting Madam Pepe. And well, okay, no more. Very good. See you. Thank you. Bye now.
EmmettPreciado.com.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you again for taking the time to listen and choosing our podcast. It really means a lot. If you enjoy this, subscribe to us on YouTube. Give this 5 stars and leave a good review on Apple Podcasts. Support us on Patreon and connect with us on our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For those of you who are also following our band, Glasspirits, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Glasspirits. On our next episode, we're going to have Fred Beato, a drummer and owner of Beetle Bags. It's a great episode, so definitely stay tuned for that. And once again, please rate and review our podcast. If you want to keep our podcast, Pepe and Ybra, going or support our band, Glasspirits, please join our Patreon. For just $5, $3, or even $1 a month, you can help keep us afloat. Our band name, Glasspirits, is one word, spelled GLASSPIRITS. You can find us on most of the social media platforms just under Glasspirits. The music you hear on this episode is our podcast theme song. It's an original song by our band Glasspirits called Something Unspoken. You can download Something Unspoken from all major retailers or stream it on Spotify. Now, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of our song, Something Unspoken. Again, thanks for tuning in, and see you next time on Pepe and Ybra.